One, two, three. Mic testing. Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Analytics India Magazine podcast, Simulated Reality. In this, we talk with leaders in the AI and data science. Today, we have with us the global head of data science from Brilio, Muthumari. Hi, Muthumari. How are you doing?
Hi Kashyap, I'm doing great. I'm very glad to be here, especially to speak about my favorite topic.
Fantastic. So today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic which Muthumari herself suggested, and she is working on it. A very state-of-the-art project in artificial intelligence, digital humans. We have been developing now conversational bots for a while, and we have been working on NLP. And but to be fair, we haven't really mastered it. They talk about the technology being generative but not intuitive. They are not. They do not have the intuition. What are digital humans? How are they one step ahead of the conversational bots they're developing, and how are we kind of addressing the gap that existed from before in the conversational AI and then implementing it to digital humans?
Sure, Kashyap. So, before I go to digital humans, right, I'll talk about my perspective of how my journey have started and how I've seen it evolve in the industry over the last decade, right? So, if you remember, like a decade back, in my first project, we built a rule-based chatbot, right, where we already have a predefined, like customer experience information available instead of a person like you and me sitting here to answer queries through a IVR. We just started creating a rule-based bot so that we can improve the efficiency. And when we analyze the data, we realize that 85% of the questions that are asked by customers are very similar. So we started this, in the contact centers, and we started creating rule-based chatbots. Then what we wanted to do was to understand the intent of the consumers, right? So that's what we called as intent-based chatbots. That was a second stage of chatbots that I have developed. And the third one was context aware chatbots, right? So say for example, when I was working with an e-commerce customer a few years back, right? So when a customer starts the conversation about, say for example, a payment related query, right? So there you will have order information, you will have the specific information. So just with the the intent based bot and the rule based bot, obviously you also have that element of context awareness that the bot needs to understand. So we started developing using deep learning the context awareness for how do you identify the context awareness, and then start creating that whole link between the first conversation and the second conversation, so that you don't ask the same set of questions to the consumer when you hand over from one algorithm to another algorithm. That was the next level that we started doing. Now, the fourth one was the emotional intelligence that you also rightly brought up, right? So it's very important for us to understand the sentiment of the consumer. So when a consumer calls the contact centers, or when they are reaching out to you for queries, what is the degree of like frustration, or are they happy, or is it a neutral conversation? We wanted to understand that, so that a human being, like when I'm talking to you, you understand that I'm very excited about talking about this topic, right? How can the bots understand the whole sentiment of that consumer? So that was the next module that we developed on top of it, so that you understand the tone in which the customer is talking to you, and then you create the response according to, right? All of this we started bringing it into the whole conversational AI design flow, the conversation flow, which became more important as compared to the algorithm in itself, right? So as you can see, the transition from the whole neural network part to how you are looking at it from a consumer experience angle. How do I scale this to solving many more problems, etc. Now the digital human is going to be like I said, it's a digital human, right? So this will also have context awareness, emotional intelligence, and it also has facial recognition capabilities, where it will understand my facial expression. Even if you can't understand from my tone whether I am excited or happy, I am smiling, so it will try to capture the facial features. And it's also multi-channel, right? You can integrate it with any channel. The consumer can chat with it, they can have like a video conversation. So
Yeah.
that is how digital humans are evolving today.
But okay, so there's one aspect of cognition where the person is kind of understanding the context, and we'll come to that later. But many companies and many even commentators on AI and NLP, they are saying, even including some of the articles in Analytics India magazine that I've read, we always say that conversational AI is not a problem that has been solved yet, right? We are not having a free flowing conversation.
Yep.
We are probably having a digital bot, and if there's some kind of, let's say, an event, and then we talk about it, they might answer specific questions in that event. So then, have you cracked conversational AI, or have you not yet? Is how real is the conversation with the?
I don't think I've cracked anything in life yet. So it is always a journey, because every year when I feel like I've mastered forecasting, like I just realize that there is so much to do in forecasting, right? So that is how I see things in life. But with respect to conversational AI, I wouldn't say that we have cracked everything, because it's the trade-off between how much you want to scale the use case versus the governance principles that you want to follow. You don't want the bot to learn without the whole human in the loop process, because we want to still control what the bot is learning. So we are not letting it scale to the full potential, right? While we have the infrastructure today with the whole cloud ML platforms, we have a lot of APIs, like I have used Rasa, Google Dialogflow. You have the infrastructure to scale, but we are not allowing the bot to scale today, because there are a lot of governance policies and principles in place. So I think we are holding the bot from learning rather than.
You're holding the bot from taking over the world.
Yes, I want to control the world.
And that reminds me, yesterday I was seeing this TV show on Netflix. It's called Inside Job. There is this character that is developing a president, and the president is going to make such important decisions based on some cognition about machine learning models. But that becomes an entirely different conversation on the governance aspect of it, which we will come to. But yeah, then since you have not yet accomplished conversation itself, conversational AI, then there are other aspects of it. The realness of a human, digital human looking human like, right? So what are some of the ways, or what are some of the technologies that are used to ensure that this human looks real, right? Not just like any other character. So when we used to play FIFA, I used to feel that every newer version comes, we thought that these players look so real. But then they did not look human. Does your digital human look human? Absolutely. Like, I cannot differentiate between it. And then how is it done? What are some of the, not conversational, but this appearance parts taken care of?
So right now we are integrating a lot of components that are already available, because like I said, we are not looking to accomplish the nirvana state of conversational AI, right? We are picking few use cases at a time, and we are implementing for our customers based on very specific KPIs, like how can I improve the efficiency, how can I improve the customer experience, can I have another channel to interact with the customers, right? That is the objective with which we are working on it. Now, if I look at the different types of technologies that we are using today, right, based on whichever stack a particular person is there, we are able to just add on components on top of it, right? For the digital human specifically, we have been working with Soul Machines, right? So we have a partnership, and we are using Soul Machines for some of those projects. If you don't want like a human interaction in itself, then obviously Rasa, Google Dialogflow, both of them are doing very well. Obviously, Watson is also a great platform. If you don't, at least I have not used the digital human part of Watson. I'm not sure if it's there or not.
But Watson shut down, no?
There are still some components that we are using in our projects,
Okay.
On the conversational AI aspects. And we have also done a very, extensive study to understand between all of these, what are the components that are good for what kind of use cases, and especially from a testing framework layer, right? There are a lot of tools and accelerators that we have built that we are adding on top of the existing technologies. And beyond this, there are, of course, the heart of this whole technology is AI, where, I specialize in. So we bring in the whole NLU, the natural language understanding. Now, if you have a face, right, so the facial recognition components are integrated. Natural language processing and generation capabilities are, integrated, so that you're able to understand the sentiment, and then you're able to generate the responses and the conversation based on the context, based on, the intent, based on whatever data that we have, access to. Now, in addition to all this, the other very important piece that we have integrated is a responsible AI element, right? Here you have bias, right? A bias reduction. We have to ensure that the class of data that we have used for training is balanced data, and there is no inherent bias that we are letting the AI train for. The second very important aspect is we don't want the models. Like I said, we totally want to control what AI is learning. So the whole XAI framework, the explainability also becomes very, very critical for us when we are developing some of these algorithms. And of course, privacy. Now, say for example, we are developing this conversational AI for a bank, right? So we don't want the bot to go extract the data from data lake and then start responding, right? Because lot of information we don't want to converse with, the bot should not converse that with the customer. So if there are any confidential information, if there are any privacy related information, we don't want to take any risks. So that whole risk identification, when I say risk identification, again, you can categorize it into a data security risk, or it can be a AIML attack, or it can be a ethical compliance issue, right? So it's very important for us to also have that governance framework and the technology part of governance embedded into it.
So it's interesting you talk about cognition and ethics, right? And I think they, in a lot of ways, go together, because you did mention about the different checks and balances. You talked about explainability, you talked about privacy, you talked about accountability. But there's a fundamental issue when it comes to cognition, right? So I was reading this article. It was published by The Atlantic, and they said that there was a psychologist called Paul Ekman, and his research essentially was on the universality of expressions. And what he essentially said, that expressions are common for all human beings. But then there was a lot of research that came after that, which said that expressions are not common to everyone. And that was a very interesting this thing, because now while there is expressions, there is tonality as well, right? You, the tone in which you speak, and these different things, they don't kind of they're essentially, the research said, they're not universal to everyone. And now there are private organizations who are using video analysis to judge how judge sincerity and these kind of things on while before hiring. But then Paul Ekman himself, he's worried about this thing. How do you, when you develop a technology like digital human, right? Do you just not then put them in a situation at high where the stakes are too high, like recruitment or recidivism, which also went wrong, or other applications, and just use them? Or do you think digital humans in the end will be able to achieve or understand expressions of different cultures, tones of different cultures, and imbibe that into their the way they speak and act, and then react to that?
So I would break down this problem, right? So any project that we take, any AI project that we take, and especially when it comes to conversational AI related to banks, or when we are going to have the conversational AI speak with the end consumer, right? We will have to go through a lot of like governance, like steering committees to go and present, because you just can't pick any use case and then we can't go and develop a conversational AI. And a lot of the big companies have already implemented it, and we'll have to have a very clear use case of why this conversational AI is required, and if it is not there, right, what is it that will happen and how it will impact the final OKRs, right? So that whole business case becomes extremely important for us to first build it, which in itself takes 3-4 weeks for us to build it with the data. and try it out, with some use cases, create a back of the envelope calculation to say that if this does not exist, what is the impact, and are we willing to trade off that impact for this, right? That is one thing that I think everyone should follow if nobody is following. The second aspect is on, can the bot learn eventually? Yes, which is why this whole bias in data and bias in algorithm becomes very important. Like you said, there are different kinds of personalities, right? Even we as human beings, right, we wouldn't have worked with all kinds of cultures. We wouldn't be familiar with why somebody or how somebody would react to a certain situation. It will take a lot of learning for us. Like when I joined a big four consulting firm like a few years back, we had a training just, for us to understand the multicultural differences, right? So I know we went to Malaysia, we had to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks, and all of our pods will have consultants from different countries. Like I was put in a pod with a Korean consultant, Japanese consultant, German, and we had to do small projects together. The whole it was not to train us on consulting, right? It was for us to understand the different cultures, understand a way to work with each other. Now, while I don't know whether we learned everything in the 2 weeks, again, it's a very biased sample. Now, this is exactly going to happen with the bots. It's going to take a lot of time for the bot
That's
to
what my
understand.
question is, right? We are still training humans
Yes.
for being in different cultures, being in different rooms with different people. I don't think we are yet as humans progressive enough to
Right.
that's an entirely different debate. But then if that is the case, should we be training, if we only have so many biases, should humans be training other digital humans and creating this with such that can lead to such high repercussions?
But if we don't stop, we are not going to advance in the technology. At least my personal view is that we should not stop training. Whether we deploy it, whether we are going to use it for all use cases, that is a different question, right? It will be very context specific. But my view is we should not stop. Like we need to keep progressing on the technology aspect as well until we are ready, and that ready can be different for different people. But
Yeah, but that's very interesting you say. I was just Cypher happened recently, and I was just talking with three leaders again from private companies, and I asked them, so the topic was, should FRTs, facial recognition technologies, be banned altogether? None of them said that. But always whenever I have talked to a AI leader, data science leader, they always tell me that you should understand the problem first, and then if AI and data is needed, then you do it. It's not like you should take the data and let me see which problem to solve, right? Do you, when you work in teams, right, in brainstorm whether this is really needed? So the problem is customer experience, right?
Yes.
When we are creating a digital human, that's the main problem that you're
Correct.
trying to solve.
Correct.
Do you not see that if there is something that where technology is not needed at all, why not keep humans only? There are a lot of humans unemployed. Then why not just keep humans rather than digital humans? Do you have this conversation? Whether the answer to it, I don't want to know. But is this a conversation that you have? Or if somebody is willing to develop and sponsor funding a digital human, you will take that project up?
No, it does not happen the other way around, right? So where we will have to first understand the use case. Now I'll tell you where this whole thing spiked. The conversational AI itself spiked during pandemic. And the reason why it spiked was that your physical banks, your physical stores are shut. And a lot of people are not very comfortable in, just giving a call, and the whole erstwhile call centers are not working, right? You will have multi-channel customer experience channels where some people want to chat, some people want to talk, a few people would want that face-to-face interaction, and that's where they feel normal, right? And they are so used to having those kind of conversations itself. Then there are another class of people who are also getting into metaverse. So now that is becoming another important channel for us to tap into customers and give them that whole experience. It's a different debate on whether metaverse is going to die down or not, right? I'm not getting into that topic, but in metaverse digital humans are becoming important. Like I said, for one of the banks, we are creating that whole customer experience where we created the virtual world of that bank, where we are now integrating a digital human who will actually answer some of those questions. So if it is not there, what are the personas of customers that we are going to lose, or how they will perceive the experience, is the topic of discussion when we want to pick up a project like this. It's not that we have built this capability so we will go and implement it, rather the other way around, because it's a very expensive technology for us to build. When I was telling you about what are the different components that you have to integrate, there are at least 15-16 components that we are going to bring together. So it is not something that we will go pilot and then try it out and fail, right? You need to really have a good business case. And it's always the other way around. If I don't have this, what am I losing, right? Most of the use cases start from there.
Correct. So this conversation is important. We agree on that. So to be fair, we are in terms of conversation, cognition, as well as the ethics. We are far from it. But then, how do we start? So if we have to responsibility develop, right? My question comes from all the perspectives. So what is the first? How do you first identify a use case? Then how do you build a team around it? What are the different resources needed for it? And then how do you start ensure scalability of it? So if you can give us a glimpse into how the process works entirely.
Sure. Like I said, for picking the use case, we will have to look at, the OKRs. We'll have to do both the analysis, right? If you have it, what are the OKRs we can tap into? We will need to have a ballpark estimation of what am I going to achieve? Is it customer experience? If it's customer experience, how are we going to quantify that we are actually going to solve that problem? And what is the confidence with which we are going to be able to solve that problem? And if it's efficiency, then we'll have to have the right measure of, how we will create that whole value quantification framework is extremely important for us to pick the use case. Now, after you pick that, okay, this is the business case and we are going to solve this problem, then we should also, look at what is the scalability of this. Right now, we just can't tap into just one single problem, tap into just 100 customers, just train the model and then go and develop it, right? So we will also need to understand what it takes for us from an infrastructure perspective, people perspective. That whole cost model is very important to measure, the ROI model, right? So value quantification, which will also have a ROI model. Now, after we build all this, then we start with something called a discovery phase. So a discovery phase is where you will actually double down on that use case, where you will start thinking about how the conversation should flow through. What are the data that I can give the bot to, it's very important for us to have like a good data security model, so that the bot does not learn from the entire data. So what will I give access? What will I not give access? Then we will start picking, the data science models that we will bring into play. And the most important thing is a conversational AI design. Because if we don't use the right kind of AI design principles, then the whole experience will go for a toss, right? For example, you ask me a question and I don't know, right? How will the bot respond to those questions? Or somebody abuses the bot. So I don't want the bot to learn the abuse words and then, reuse it when, bot becomes angry or something.
I think everyone tries that with Siri sometimes.
So how do you, bring in that whole element of what to learn, what not to learn? And it will be a combination of, your whole human in the loop process, like I said. Then the last part is the quantification. While the machine learning models have a quantitative way of measuring the performance of the bot, there are a lot of qualitative measures that we need to understand, and that is not something that is completely automated, right? So those are some of the things that we will have to look for. Now, if you look at this whole thing, right, and of course the MLOps framework, which is going to be very important, because now if I'm going to launch it with say 5,000 users and then eventually going to start using it for 5 million users, how will my scalability work from a machine learning operations perspective? And also to look at different languages that people are going to be using culturally, what kind of customers will be using and how different they are. Have I used the right balance in the data to train the algorithm, right? So all of these will happen in the discovery phase, which will take around 10 to 12 weeks for us to come up with the whole plan. Now, within this 12 weeks, the kind of roles that will be important is a business analyst, right? Very, very critical role.
Business
Analyst.
okay.
They need to understand the use case without any bias on the technology or without any love for doing this project. A very unbiased person. Usually the business analyst asks us questions like, why do I need? That will be the first question usually a business analyst asks, right? So I don't trust the data scientists in some of these discovery projects. I'll ask the business analyst to, drive it from their perspective, right? Then a solution consultant who will be able to bring in all the elements together. Then an architect will be able to get the data science, machine learning, data architecture. Then there are a lot of components that from a testing perspective also that we will be integrating. So the solution architect is important. Then obviously have data scientists who will be building the NLP algorithms, facial recognition algorithms, sentiment analysis. There'll be an AI engineer who will be primarily focused on implementing some of these tool based things. So we will not build anything from scratch. So this AI engineer is usually very comfortable with whatever tools and technologies are available. So they are the ones who will be able to configure and bring in whatever libraries are already available. Then we need to have testers, like it can be performance testers, integration testers. So that is one. Then there are few full stack developers also we will require, where the conversational AI designer will only design the conversational flow. Now there needs to be a full stack developer who will actually implement it in the front end, because even if you have the most intelligent bot, if your front end does not look appealing, the adoption is going to be very low. There, if the customer has budget, I try to include something called an evangelist, because I can build an amazing bot, but if we are not increasing the evangelization and adoption, right, so it will fail. So again, that's a optional role. A lot of people don't like to pay for an evangelist.
I've always wondered, people who write evangelist on their LinkedIn, who are they employed by? But anyways,
me.
that's fantastic. But funny you didn't mention a social scientist.
Social scientist, it's
That's a
domain,
very important
very specific thing. Like I have not hired anybody like that yet, but we can
don't you
explore.
think with all the discussion that we had, especially with the repercussions of a digital human, where humans are only not prepared to be progressive enough, and we're talking about digitally creating humans by big capitalist profit driven companies, it's important to have a social scientist. That for me, if I was creating a team and I am a journalist, market researcher, and then I would first hire a social scientist to understand how it can go wrong. But that's not affordable, is it? Like how do you?
I'm not sure. Like I have not come across a social scientist yet. But typically the responsible AI principles and the algorithms are embedded with a machine learning engineer who's going to be scaling the algorithm. So that is where we try to plug that role in. But I will definitely go back and read about social scientists.
I think I think for me it's a very crucial element. And good ethics means always good business, right? That is not that has never been debated or contested. My final question, right? You throughout the interview have mentioned about the limited knowledge that you want to give to the human, that digital human, right? And their presence in the metaverse as well, or this thing. So the metaverse was created in a way that we kind of have a digital twin of humans, right? And then we interact. But this digital human is an entirely different concept. It's a fictional character that will start interacting. Where do you limit this? How do you ensure? And this is where probably a social scientist may better answer. But from your perspective, how do you set the limits of what the bot will learn and not? Because that is very important to responsibly scale this technology. Correct. So how do you do that?
Today we are limiting it with the data that it has access to. We are also trying to limit it during the design phase itself as to what are the different types of questions that you can take, you cannot take. What are the sentiments and how do you want to respond to those sentiments? What are the sentiments that we will just log and not respond to? So these are the places that we are controlling today. And The reason being, we just started exploring this for very limited use cases, right? Like I said, there are a lot of governance policies in place that it's at least I have not implemented where you go and solve all problems, right? We haven't reached that nirvana stage yet, and there is still a lot of adoption to happen. The more we learn, the more we will be able to scale it from one use case at a time today. So that is where our limitations are, because one wrong customer experience can also ruin your whole thing, rather than to do something technologically savvy and try to create more human, digital human, etc., right? So we are also worried about the other part of not creating a bad customer experience while you are still trying to adapt new technologies, try new channels, etc.
Yeah, I think, yeah, fair enough. But I think majority of your concerns are, I think when it comes to capitalist profit driven companies, the concerns are about customer experience. I think they should, personally, that's my opinion, they should focus more on ethics as well. And on that note, I'm going to ask your favorite Analytics India magazine question. Are digital humans going to take over the world?
No, I'm not going to let anybody take over the world.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Muthumari, for
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks, Kashyap. It was a very interesting conversation. I enjoyed. I hope you also had fun.
I did. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Cheers.